First to the floor, Mrs. Rodriguez.
I would like to thank the board for hearing our story tonight. I'm here because there is an unchecked system in the middle school, specifically. My son is a special needs student. He is receiving support with the IU SITES programs. He's a psychologist, and he has recently escalated because a bully is back in the school district, and it has occurred to me that I would be negligent to allow him to continue on at the school. So last week, I asked him if he wanted to be homeschooled, and his answer was yes. This was probably one of the easiest decisions that I've ever made for my son, knowing that he is facing being bullied without really being supported in school. Since he's been at the middle school for 4 years, he's an 8th grade student. I really wanted him to finish. There was a Times News article, and he has been bullied ever since he got into the school. So there was a Times News article that stated that they hadn't had 0 cases of bullying. Capital Valley had also 0 cases of bullying, and Tamapa reported 12. In my mind, I'm wondering, how is this possible when I'm in the school talking to Mr. Everett and the people there about the situation, now knowing that unless I report to Safe to Say, or report it in a form, which I asked for, if there were any forms on bullying here, and no one said no, there's no forms to fill out, you can't report that. So we'll stop in the administration office. So I can understand Mr. Sevlin being confused about talking to some of the principals and staff and trying to get things done, but nothing gets reported. When this child returned from his expulsion for being a part of a hazing, I understand, my son was being upset again by the same student, and another student told me about it. So when I approached him and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" he simply replied that snitches get stitches, and that telling makes you weak. He has Asperger's. He's very literal, and I can't continue to put him in an environment where the administration is letting the children govern themselves. Like, we only need 5 kids to tell on another child, and usually that child is innocent, and the bullies are the ones who are trying to get the child in trouble. I have come up against that a couple of times with Nathan, my son. So, I'm here tonight to ask you, I pay $800 to a tutor because he has problems with dyslexia that I was told didn't exist. It was poor reading skills when I brought it up to the school. So I have paid a tutor $800 a month. I also have him seeing a psychologist now because all the support that we're receiving in the special education program is gone, and that's $100 a week. I spent $125 for homeschool because he's not safe in middle school, and his anxiety was evidence of that, and his relief as well when this child was no longer in school. His 10-day suspension was probably the best 10 days of my son's life. I can't see putting children like this back into our school system to make it an unsafe place for our children. If I sent him back to school, I would be considering myself as negligent. I want you guys to try to take a look at what is going on in the schools. And I need you to listen to what the children are saying. I asked my 8th grader, what advice would you have for a 5th grader coming into middle school? And there were other 8th graders in my car, and they said, "Oh, good luck." I don't think we should leave it up to the children to tell on each other. I think that should be the teachers and the adults' responsibility in the building. However, when you have adults and teachers that are also bullies and acting unappropriately in school, having children use pressure points so that they won't cry during class, or, you know, having the child say, "Well, is that your answer? Is that a yes?" constantly. It's not appropriate. So once I realized how badly the anxiety was part of his bullying, by evidence of this child's absence from school, I started to realize how unsafe this place was. There was a video that I was shown by my son. During a doctor's appointment, we were sitting together, and he said, "Look at this. This is, you know, my bully's voice on there." And there was a bunch of pushing and shoving and people knocking a child down. And I said to him, "Oh my God, what are they doing to this child? What are they doing?" And he said, "That's how they joke. That's how they joke. This is not a joke. None of this is a joke. People are seriously being injured. You know, parents are very upset. There's, you know, suicides, there's hazing, and no report of bullying. How can that be? How can it be that there's no bullying reporting and all of a sudden now we have a hazing?" I don't understand where the disconnect was. But after persistence, after pulling my child out of school, now I'm getting answers, you know? So I feel like the board should really look into the dynamics and the environment of middle school. It is not safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, when you had the issue,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
Absolutely. Yes,
I know a lot of people want to speak, so I'll be quick.
absolutely.
When you had the issue, and your son comes home and says, things aren't going as well, you know, they give you the old fine, right? And that's not enough. You want to probe a little bit. After they gave you the information, do you know as a parent how the process of the school worked? Were you ever educated as to how that works so that we can stop this stuff with the board? If they were moral and then decided that we care about the students and we want to protect them and we want to save the community and do our job.
No,
Are you aware of that?
No one ever said to me what their process was up until decided to pull Nathan out of school and said, "I understand that I'm telling, you know, you guys, but nobody's reporting it. How is that possible?" As a parent, I thought telling the people in charge of the school that was reporting. So I was then informed about Safe to Say. I did post that on my Facebook. It got 12 shares, and I was thanked by several parents in the community because it does go directly to the Attorney General's office and bypasses the school. So it is a safe way to tell what is happening anonymously to someone who will do something about it.
And do you think the child was educated as well that that Safe to Say program, Safe to Say something is the way, is an anonymous program so that they don't have the issue of snitches get stitches?
Well, I think the child does not understand. He's currently seeing a psychologist to ease his fears that he won't be in trouble or he won't get in trouble from any other child.
I can respect that, but the idea is, did this school provide the necessary training to make sure that this child, your parents, yourself, your friends, and everybody else in the community knows exactly what to do when
No.
it starts so we can nip it in the bud?
No, I assumed that telling someone was the start of them handling it.
Well, there is a mandated reporting process, which again, we don't know that process. So that's why that top-down from safe to say something is so valuable.
Absolutely.
Because if you as a stakeholder would file a formal written complaint saying, I want to see every instance of bullying, I want to see every mandated report that came out of the school, I want to see these things. Your board morally is obligated to provide that to you as a stakeholder. You guys run the show.
Yes,
We're public servants, not public bullies. like
well,
we've seen.
yes, I still have some meetings with IEP, and I still have to finish up details because this just happened last week. It was something that I did very quickly, you know, for my child's safety. So there will probably be a request for those reports in the near future.
The district does not have any documents that mandated reporting, those are filed and they're handled by the police.
Let's see, there's also a website that says
But there's nothing
educator
legal.
misconduct, that you can go to the state directly again and file misconduct. If you think that your student told somebody something and then nothing happened, they have a educator misconduct access as well around this cabal that we're in. But,
And who will be
I
responsible
understand.
for the money that I'm putting out to educate my child?
Your district,
Okay, thank you very much.
which is why if we protect the students, we save the community.
I will
Thank you.
correct. Thank you.
I think Mr. Adam has a question.
Hold on, we have more.
Yeah, no, that's the next one.
Oh,
Yeah,
our votes.
We have some serious issues here. I don't have any grandkids in the district, I don't have any kids in the district. But these children are our future. They're our future leaders. They're just our future. And we have to do better by them. I don't remember where I read it, but I read that the climate study was done and it should have been back, I think, the middle of November.
No, November was when it was made available
Okay, that's
to
what.
us. We're doing that after the PSSA's, it's already set up, we have the codes, and that'll be, information will be out in May. They recommend fall and spring. But couldn't do it earlier in the year because it was revised, and I believe it was November 14th, I believe was the actual date on the PD. If you go on PD's website, you can see the climate study.
Yeah, I did
But we
see
did
the
not
stuff on
complete it.
PDE, but and like I said, I don't remember where I read it. But I thought that maybe it was referring to getting it started, you
And
know.
also part of our audit is also our school safety report too, so when we're giving audit, school safety is part of that report.
Okay, and I believe Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned the article in the Times News. I was corrected on this as well by someone else. We had 2 incidences of bullying reported. I think it was in 17, 18. And what I hear from parents is reporting to an administrator should be reporting, but apparently that's not. It seems that the community is getting the fact they need to do a formal written complaint. And it's just a shame it had to come to this. I don't want to see any kid hurt. I understand the child that got injured in the bathroom. You're not going to stop all of that. I mean, it was in a private area where there was no teacher or adult available. It could have still happened anyway. But it is also my understanding that the child who caused this, or maybe perhaps it was a group, I don't know, I wasn't there, is still in school. Isn't that what BHA is for? There have been comments that this child has been hurting other children since kindergarten, he's now in 5th grade.
I want to say something. Okay,
Just a second, let me finish.
okay, because my grandson's involved in that issue. So is her son.
Okay, just give me a
So is her son.
second. If a child is acting out in this way, isn't that a cry for help? Is there something going on in that child's life that makes him hurt other children to get attention put on the problem? I'm not just talking about the kid who was a victim here, because maybe the perpetrator is a victim also. Maybe he needs help. How do we provide that help? We have to. because they're our future. And I don't want to see the kid or the children who did it get lost either. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Barb.
Barb, most instances like this do have two victims, the perpetrator and the victim. That's not very common. in
No, I
some
get
areas,
it.
right? So our policy about hazing and other things is all online, right? And it's supposed to have this thorough and comprehensive investigation.
I'm not even gonna go on
I know, that's
investigation.
where the board is supposed to be overseeing to make sure it happens. We have a policy 011 that says seek input of the stakeholders.
Right.
And then there's a school code 426 that says anytime 3 of these directors ask for a
I
special
get
meeting
it.
so that the people can listen and have a chance to talk, and not at 9:39, but and not just 3 minutes, they can actually speak. Joy asked for that meeting, I asked for that meeting, Gail asked for that meeting,
I know,
and it was blocked.
I know,
It's disturbing. And
I get it.
I yield the floor, please, whoever's next, or if you can talk, that'd be great.
You got my name.
Unfortunately, there's situations where we can't give information out. We're talking about health and welfare of students and.
No,
and
I
all that
understand
stuff.
that, I understand the privacy issues, and there are no names and everything
even-
else.
There's lawful
Even
transparency.
even to the point, again, Mr. Bradley, can we please, to the point to where individuals want to know what happened to the other students who were involved in it. We are not permitted to discuss any type of discipline. So for example, if me and you got into an altercation in school, we were students, got suspended and you got suspended, and my parents came in and said, what did the other person get? They are not legally allowed to even.
No,
tell
I
me.
get that.
So there, unfortunately, the way it is, there's a lot of protected rights for children because it is not, something, the information that we could share. And as much as, we like to say stuff on social media is inaccurate, there's an investigation that did take place. We're working with the police. We work with the police all the time, and any time that, it needs to be addressed. But we can't disclose that type of information. Some people can't handle that, and there's times where people come in and they're very upset, but that's just. the
Well,
way
if their
it is.
child is hurt, especially like that poor kid with a brain bleed, that's a traumatic brain injury.
That is correct.
And it can affect him 10 years down the road. He might be fine now. But my point is this. If what I read on Facebook is correct,
And
and this
again, we
kid,
cannot control social media.
I get that, but if it's correct and this child has been hurting other children since kindergarten, was that not a cry for help by that child that something is wrong in his life? And why is he still in a position to hurt other kids?
Students have a right to be educated. There's many legal issues.
But where do we draw the
that
line?
have to be, again.
Where do we draw the line?
Here it is, we offer the supports. There's different regulations. Students have the right to be educated.
Right.
Students also have the right to be disciplined, which is what happens.
And they have
There's
a right
also
to be safe in school too.
That is correct, but there's also a right to those individual students to have a free and appropriate public education. Because someone is, doing this, there doesn't mean that there's not resources already allocated for that individual student to help with this process. It's an unfortunate situation, but things have been addressed. The school has investigated, handled it. The school police officer, Officer Kazakovich, has also been in contact and addressed. So I don't want people to think nothing was complete. Unfortunately, I can't share what was done.
No, and I understand
But
that.
I'm
I mean,
saying,
But isn't that what places like the HA and Kids Piece are for?
Kids Piece is something that you have to be placed there. We could recommend a child to go somewhere. If that parent disagrees with our recommendation, we don't have that option.
So you're saying that a child who is completely disruptive to the education process, a harm to other students,
You would have to, one situation does not create a harm to other students.
One situation, you got 3 right here.
I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is what
You
you're
have one
referring
child
to.
that started in September, was reported to the principal. He hit my grandson in the back of the head. I, fortunately, was a CO, okay? Came home from work, my grandson told me. Said, Mom, let's go. Went to their house. Oh, you're just a babysitter. I said, yes, the path your son's on, I'll be babysitting him too. Well, that was in September. Now in November, I got 2 more. Same kid. So what's the problem? And I'm told to get the F off their property, because I'm threatening their kid? Really? Call cops.
I can't,
We'll see who's the problem.
yeah,
I'm
I
telling
can't,
you,
again.
because your kid's a problem. He bullied my grandson from Pee Wee football on up. I had enough.
I think a lot of people's questions here tonight is where does the line go as to where the dual school district has the authority to say, okay, that child is disruptive to the point that they can be pulled from the classroom, put into alternative schooling, i.e. BHA,
Right.
or on the other hand, at what point, you know, I mean, I have a child too. I mean,
I can
I
tell you.
have to question that and ask that question as a superintendent. And I know that's a hard question to answer.
No, it's, if, as a parent, and that's the recommendation the school district's making, there is a legal process that we have to go through. In a due process hearing, and Mr. Filer could attest to that. For example, if a student is expelled, that parent has a right to seek due process and present its case in front of the school board.
But when is there going to be accountability? When the stuff is reported, okay, it was
Or when
actually
it's too
reported in
late.
September.
We've never had this issue. Mr. Cleaver, I'm
Correct.
an alumni of the school district. We didn't have this stuff. This whole idea of hazing and thing, I just, maybe I'm completely oblivious to remembering it, but we didn't have these issues.
I can tell you,
I mean, social, economical things have changed, to change culture, to change things of how kids are raised. Well, I don't know.
I can tell you we're in cases right now to where we're actually fighting to have students placed, and because of the way the law is written, and we're battling back and forth, trying to make the best possible recommendation for placement of students. And if they don't agree with it, it's very tough, and it becomes a legal battle. It becomes a legal battle. No matter what I say, or no matter what we recommend, no matter how times we have staff members go through and document daily incident reports, we have it. And they come in, they have lawyers too, and for their individual rights, and it's very, very
And I do
tough.
understand it. Students do have a due process, right? And-
But this is just recommendations because the student has harmed other students, and when they come in, it's very difficult for placement of students.
So you're saying that the kids who are physically abusive and mentally abusive to the other children, they're being protected more than the kids who are just good kids who
I'm
just
not
want to go to
saying
school?
that. I'm-
That's what it sounds like. I
I'm
mean, as
saying
a
they have-
parent.
I'm
Because
saying they
I
have
feel like my kids aren't being protected.
I'm saying make this statement out. Actually, talking.
Well, one second though, I know.
I'm
You
saying.
only have the rights that you know you can enforce.
But what I feel like as a parent and all my friends, we feel like these kids are getting more protection than our kids. So where's the line? What do these kids have to do to get ejected from the school? I know when I was a kid, it didn't take much to get ejected from a school.
But the
So
more that you learn
where's
about
the
your
line?
individual
I
rights
mean,
to
does
be
someone have to
protected-
die? Because nobody wants that.
That's not the.
I agree.
But wait, I'm a nurse. That little boy who smashed his head, he could have very easily hit the wrong spot, just a sensitive spot. He could have bled out on that bathroom floor and he could have died. He could have died. It could have been anybody's kid here.
This is that little boy's mother, okay? This is his mother.
So what are we doing to protect our kids instead of the bad kids?
Homeschool your kids.
And that shouldn't be the option. That should not be the
There
option.
should be a meeting.
It should not be the
board should
option.
hold a meeting to teach everyone what their rights are. so
Why
they
is
can
our
use
only
it.
option to homeschool our kids?
It's not, there
It
is some
should
rights.
not be the option.
However,
And the
I-
only people in the buildings will be the ones that act
Give it a
out.
rubber stamping board the way we're saying it, I respect it.
It's frustrating is all I'm saying. It's very frustrating.
I think it's frustrating probably on both sides to try and do what.
You know, and my child's in 5th grade. She knows that boy. She doesn't know the victim, but she knows the other boy. And she's the one who came home and told me about it. And then I had to find out, is this true? Please tell me this didn't happen. But here's the fact. The fact is, if that kid bullies my kid's gonna knock him down he's gonna knock him flat out. And we all know who's gonna get punished. My child. For defending herself. And that should never happen. That shouldn't be an option. But I'll tell you what, if a kid puts their hands on my kid, I will fight to the death to defend them because this stuff shouldn't be going on. And I know that our recess people, they're awesome. There's not enough of them, unfortunately. There's too many blind spots in the recess area. They do a great job, but stuff happens. I get that. But this kid is a repeat offender. So where are we drawing the line with him? And we all know who the kid is. We all know. The kids know who the kid is.
Mr. Cleaver, I respect that you're in a tough position. At the recent things that have gone in the district with a student, and we all know that a student committed suicide, it's no hidden secret. We know, what we hear through social media and what happened at the middle school with the child striking his head and the hazing incident. I know it's tough. There's other allegations that there was supposedly a bomb threat on Thursday as well in the school district. I don't know. But there's a lot of things going, and I get that position and that stress. But I think the thing is that we never had this in the school district. And the question now is, what part of that paradigm has changed and shifted to open this is there a question in that maybe the administration needs to take a look, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone particular, but at the overall structure as to how the middle school is going. We get it. Kids are going through puberty, hormones change, kids do stupid stuff. I get it, I was once there. But we didn't do this stuff when we were young. And that's concerning that we didn't have any of that. I can't honestly recall in my whole entire years in school of a suicide in school during my time. And we've been privileged, I guess, in a sense that we didn't have these issues. And I think that's where a lot of parents are coming from, if we didn't have these issues. Where are they coming from? And we want to know that when our child goes to school, they're safe. You know what I mean? We don't want to be that thing, let's prevent it while we're ahead of it.
Right. And unfortunately, we can't prevent every accident, I think.
Correct. And I don't expect you to say, Mr. Browning, I don't expect, Mr. Browning,
But
I don't expect the school district to put bathroom monitors in every single bathroom for the kids because of the incident. But one has to, maybe it's time to bring the whole student body into the auditorium again and say, okay, we need to have a conversation again on this.
Right, and we do have a conversation with the students, we do talk to them, we talk to the importance about reporting stuff, we talk to them to the importance of knowing the district attorney's office comes in here and talks to these students about the dangers of social media and posting things and what have you. We talk to individuals and we talk to the players about hazing and the importance, and what that is and that it won't be tolerated, here in the district. So that information is, is shared with them.
But again, snitches get stitches. Snitches get stitches.
And then children are left unsupervised.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
think,
Mr. Bradley does make a point tonight. The one thing I didn't know is my 8-year-old has come home twice now upset because he's been accused on the bus of something that he didn't do, and he's like, Dad, I didn't do it, I had nothing to do with it. And I've been told by even parents who called me and have told me he didn't do anything wrong, but I got a bus driver who's 75 years old screaming at my kid, threatening him because the bus driver knows who I am, knows me. I'm gonna call your father and he's gonna whoop your behind. I don't need my 8-year-old coming home crying on a bus.
agreed.
But as a parent, if you complain, you have access to the video, you have access to.
But we didn't know these avenues as parents that we have to go and if we know something, and even if it's not your child, out of moral and ethically, if you know something of a child being bullied by some other child or you're seeing it, you should be reporting it. It's just the right thing to do.
What is the policy as an administration if a parent comes? Do you at any moment take it upon yourself to file for that parent? Or do you not?
We can't file if an individual parent, like for a victim, there has to be, the parent has to file. We can't file.
So I come to you as a parent.
No, I mean file, you're talking legally, right?
I come to you as a victim's parent. Do you tell these parents the process? Or do you let them go out on their own and just scream out the door and
The process for
report it properly? So that you guys actually do something.
well, if the individual comes in, and I'll use Mr. Sevlin as an example, I don't know if he's still here, came in and had that discussion with Mr. Sevlin, he then reported back to him, that, how it was handled, for that individual. But as far as a report, we can't give that information out. Like, I can't say, we questioned student A or B.
No, I think what Mr. Dever is trying to say.
He's talking about the formal complaint process.
What do I do to get this addressed, right?
That's what I'm saying. There's got to be a path.
What do I do here to get this addressed at a higher level than what I?
Even when you're
It should be
they're not telling
responsible.
you. I mean, like, when we called the principal, she didn't even
tell us, well, there's a way, a process to do it.
Okay.
She didn't even tell us.
And that's what we're,
School,
that's what
seriously,
we're,
there's a disconnect.
That's
There's
what
a
we're
total disconnect
Okay.
between the school
The
and
process
the
of
parents.
reporting the incident or the process of reporting,
The incident, any incident, like hers had to be reported.
so in all actuality, this
Hers
kid
was on camera.
would have numerous incidences reported about this child. And it would be right up to the top, where you would have to do something about it. I mean, you did something about it, I understand that. But a habitual offender like this, to still be in the school, is tough. You know, and for these kids to be fearing to go to school,
Yeah, when my kid's crying and he doesn't want to go to school, and he's a good kid, he's friends with everybody.
that's an embarrassment on all of you. And you're all responsible for that
I have something to say to that. It's the parents of those kids.
as well.
No, not as well. Like, they cannot do anything if the parent says no. Because the kid is a minor, so it's the parents that have to make the decision for them. So if the parent says no, they're not allowed to do anything.
Well, there's a problem there.
There is a
They have
problem.
already
Parents
said
are
it's
both
safe to say.
disconnect, so. Yeah, no, like you guys said.
Oh, in the schools, why don't you have an 800 number or whatever it is safe to say? Put that number all over.
It's safe to say.
Safe to say is required to be taught by every student how to use it. And it's not
So, yeah, but it should be available that they can walk down the hall maybe and rip that paper off the phone number and stick it in a pop so they can call later. They don't wanna call while they're there, they don't wanna call
Put
when
it-
they're.
It's an app.
it's actually an app, you can actually put the app on your phone.
And it's required to be
But
trained
then kids have
to every
it
student.
here in the schools.
They do have it, and the information is posted throughout. Letters have been sent home, I don't know, to parents as well about the Safe to Say process and how to download it and how to fill out a report. Information really
But
gets
to your point,
And we can
if the
send it, and what
student
we'll
says
do is we'll make another effort to put another push, because for me, it's been out for a year. I know.
Well, how big is out there here when 90% of the people here don't learn it?
because the board is rubber stamp, listen, very carefully, understand if you take, stop, if you recognize that when you think you're telling somebody in the school,
Right,
and then they're gonna take that forward,
right,
They're not.
the policy doesn't say they have to.
right.
So unless you force them, let me put it really simple. If you stand up at that podium and say, I want to see the PP&L bill, these guys can ignore you.
Right.
But if you walk up to that podium and recognize that that's a lobby effort, and they don't have to listen to you, they have to listen, sorry, they have to listen. They don't have to do anything, right? But if you go on the other side of this wall, and you write a piece of paper that says, give me that PP&L bill, they have 5 days to answer you and give it to you. Or they get another 30 days to pretend they don't have it, can't find it, whatever, the normal stuff. That's a contract. That's a legal written requirement of a stakeholder, forcing the administration to hold them accountable. Same thing happens for these. If you can write a complaint, you're physically writing it down, you're obligating them. So when a student walks up to the principal and says, hey, Susie kissed me, or Johnny touched me, or whatever, or he punched me, or whatever, they should write it down. And I know it's bad, but at least the teacher should write it down and give it to the administration board. We should obligate them to write it down.
Parents are busy working and the 8-year-old.
I know, and that's why the board
By himself.
should oversee the administration, not rubber stamp them, and force them to see these things forward, so that you nip it in the bud. Anytime it happens, it's nipped in the bud. It's the old half-hour detention or something, you nip it in the bud. It's not happening, you gotta fix it, it's gotta get escalated, that this board mandates that this administration does these things. Educates people that it's safe to say, educates people how the process works, educates the students to say, write it down and copy someone else.
Mr. Cleaver, when you, let's say,
Oh, I'm sorry.
if somebody calls Safe to Say, what's the process
It's
after
not
they
with the Safe to Say.
Or it sends an email, whatever they
They'll
do.
fill out the information, depending on the situation.
Right.
That individual responding to the Safe to Say could either call out or wait and send it via email the next morning at 6 a.m.
So what do you mean by call out?
They will call, there's 3 administrators that are called. For each report, there's a circuit, if it's a middle school, it goes to the principal, the assistant principal, high school or middle school, assistant principal, dean of students, and then at the elementary, it goes to both principals You know, if no one responds and it's something they feel that needs to be addressed immediately, it also goes to the police. The police are involved
If it's a.
as well.
And you get
A lot
another.
of, a lot of times.
I wanna hear this.
A lot of times, if it's something to where they have concerns about self-harm, the police will go do a well-child visit. So they'll actually go to the home, the police, and talk to the individual, the student, check and say, is everything okay?
Just a 911
And have that-
dispatcher.
Yep, it'll actually be dispatched.
So then, okay, so somebody makes a call, they're being harmed at school, or they feel that they're gonna be harmed, someone made a threat, whatever. They do the first step, it goes to the principals. Okay, so then at that point, the principals do what?
We have to respond to it and let them know what action is taken. 'Cause
So you have to respond back to that
To the
company?
to the
Okay.
tipster.
And you, as the tipster, gets a number that you can verify and check and oversee to make sure it got.
Right, right, so then, okay, so
There's accountability.
you call, or you initiate it, it goes safe to say, they contact the principals. The principals contact them back and say, we've handled it, and that's the end, or where does it go from
They
there?
can say, a lot of times it'll be a dialogue that this has been addressed, we know that there's a social and emotional issue with the student, you know, and that has been forwarded to, you know, maybe there's a risk assessment that was completed on the student. And so we have to put in there what we did as a school district. Yep, that's part of the process.
And then, if they're satisfied, that's where it ends. If they're not satisfied, they call the police, they call child
They could-
services,
you
all
have
of
the
the
right to
above?
call the police, you know, and if it's an issue where the school police need to be identified, or need to be part of it, the school police are also informed of the incident, you know, as well, for the investigation, for the school police
Well,
officers.
right, but you can't go to the local police.
You can, oh, absolutely, you can.
No, I went. They told me that if the school is
Has
the
their
school
own
and they
things.
handle their own things and they can do nothing about it unless you guys call them.
Well, it depends on whatever, if it's something that is more serious, like a felony, a lot of times they'll
How
have.
about like a bomb threat?
No, it depends on the situation.
I'm giving you an example, what about a bomb threat?
If it, depending on the investigation here, we have our own school police that could investigate it, exactly, for something to that effect. And that investigation could take, that investigation could take place and that student could be apprehended very shortly.
I'm sorry?
And that investigation could take place, and because of video surveillance and things, a lot of times those situations are handled pretty quick with the student of
Who
interest.
sees the video surveillance? Because I heard the hallway, video cameras don't work.
No, they are all up and working. We had an issue
How do
this
you get
weekend.
proof of that?
We had an issue this weekend, that they went down for some reason, but they were
The day of the
working,
bomb threat,
they were active.
on the day of the bomb threat.
That is correct.
What if I have
So what bomb threat? We didn't know there was a bomb threat.
How
There
can I
was,
prove
there
that?
was, again, there was a situation where we took, there was a suspicious message in the bathroom. We were able
Not a
to,
suspicious message, it said, I'm gonna blow the school up, and it was dated 1/24/20,
right, which was Friday.
right?
So why wasn't the authorities called? You didn't know if that threat was serious or not.
Because as,
You couldn't have possibly known.
because on Thursday, sir, we were made aware of it.
No,
And
you
it
were
was-
aware of
How
it
do you
Friday
know?
morning.
How do you know they didn't put it on the morning, 3 days early?
Again, we were made aware of the situation. A student of interest was completely apprehended and the process is in place, and the investigation is still ongoing.
It was up to you to handle.
But why weren't the police,
Our school police officers were involved in the
well then
investigation.
why didn't they turn it into the Lehigh police?
Because
I
we
don't think
had,
no policy, it said you're supposed to dial 911 right away, and certain teachers are supposed to check certain areas and then put the students into a safe area, and then you're supposed to continue to check if that's.
again, the
policy.
again, the
And
situation
that
with,
did not happen.
again.
Mr. Cleaver, your policy says one thing. So in about 30 seconds here, I'm gonna verify whether you followed your policy by the county CAD, okay? Correct.
By what?
County CAD.
Right, and that's the problem. We don't have oversight. We need a board to have the guts and the responsibility
And I want
to
to know,
oversee our subordinate administration. It's not the other way around, guys.
when that bomb threat was taken, how did you find out the bomb threat?
I was called-
either legit or not legit?
I was called immediately, and we have a process we handled. We started the investigation. Again, a student was apprehended because of video surveillance that we were able to view immediately.
My recommendation to anyone who's filed.
Videos were up and working. Despite what you heard, videos were available. They were actually available on Friday because we had a situation that we had to use that for video surveillance.
So did you notify all the parents through the reverse
There
phone
was
system?
no robo.
I didn't notify anything, no.
So
Because
you
we
didn't,
addressed,
you didn't notify the parents, you didn't dial 911,
I
you
notified our
conducted
school,
an investigation,
I notified our school police officer. Actually, I
you
didn't,
notified the
administration
school
notified
police
the school police
officer,
officer.
and he's what, one, two, we have two school police
That is
officers?
correct.
Two school police officers handled an incident that could turn into something catastrophic in a matter of minutes, because you decided you're an expert, and you have 20 years plus of emergency service, police, and fire, and background, and all that.
No, I'm not.
Shame on you, Mr. Cleaver. Shame on you for putting the student body and the teachers and the employees of this district in harm and not following your own policy. And I'll tell you what, if I was a board member right now, Mr. Cleaver, I would ask for your resignation. That is uncalled for. But that, I'll tell you what, I'd have you fired.
Thank you. And again,
And the resignation of the board members that rubber stamp this stuff and don't even follow our own policies.
That's unbelievable.
This conversation should have been taking place weeks ago.
Not one parent was called, not one parent.
again,
They weren't taking.
Not again, Cleaver.
we went through
Not again.
the process.
And you covered it up, that point.
Right.
When did we come, there was nothing covered
Get
up.
rid of it. Make it go away.
I can
That's-
show you,
Yes.
I can show everybody in here that there was something written.
I'm not disagreeing that there was something written. I'm not disagreeing.
Well, it's not there now, is it? It was written.
No, I know it's not.
I know when I was on school.
Everybody able to cover it up. When it literally said,
You know,
David, wait.
That was Friday. We found it on Thursday.
You found it Friday morning.
We found it when?
Friday morning.
That is incorrect.
Before the students came to school.
That is incorrect.
It doesn't matter when you found it. It could have happened.
That is incorrect.
so you're saying you found a kid for Thursday and you had the school checked and made sure it was
Our
completely
school
cleared
police
by
officer
Friday?
went through and did a
No
sweep.
need.
Were there children in the school at that time?
Excuse me, this young lady just said, the school police officer tried to talk her out of it. Are you kidding me?
Talk her out of what? I'm sorry.
Go on, follow the charges and the complaints. Are you kidding me?
Please make a vote.
Everybody, I'd just like to make a comment. Anything that you report here at the school, I would recommend reporting to a different authority figure, like the police, like Safe to Stay, so that there's two different avenues for things.
Oh, Mr. Cleaver, I just want to know something. The school district employs 2 officers, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so why is the IPD sitting out here?
Because they're limited on the hours they work. The school police officers.
They're part-time.
They're part-time police.
But we're gonna pay a police officer probably $32.50 an hour to be here for the meeting, right?
Again, we're limited on the amount of hours that our own school police officers can work.
And they're protecting, by the way, they're protecting them against you, right?
And I did go to the local police. I did go to the local police on Friday night, and I did show them pictures, and I did notify them, and they said, what's today's date? And I said the 24th, and they said, well, did the school blow up? And I said, well, no, but like, don't you think you should go check it? And he said, there's police officers there. And I said, well, didn't they do anything? Didn't they send anything out or call anybody? Because nobody told me. Like, no other parents were called. And they just said, you need to go to the school on Monday and ask them. So the Huntington police will not do anything. They told me straight out, they will not do anything unless you call them. So
But there's a paper trail and you
should
need
have
it to the
called
yard
them.
people.
Oh, yes, yeah, he would not take my pictures, but he did take down my name, phone number, and address.
All right, can I ask one quick question just to follow
She's
up?
been here very patiently. Can we please?
I'm sorry, I just want to know in 2019, 2020, for the report to the PDE, we're not going to hear that there were only 2 reports of bullying, right?
The issue with bullying is there's a lot of other things where someone could be referencing bullying, it could end up being harassment, there's other ideals when we report it. So just because, for example, I felt it was bullying and you felt it was filed under harassment, you would file under that code for harassment. So there's that
But I
part.
mean, if a parent makes an actual complaint saying that their child was bullied, they use the word, does that make it a bullying?
Not automatically when we start looking, because
So you're saying there's different degrees of it?
there's a lot of.
There's different degrees of bullying.
What's the difference? What's the difference between being harassed and being bullied? What's the difference? I know,
Doesn't mean that there is difference.
I just want to know what the difference is. Are they on the work?
Can we please let this individual, please?
Yes.
My son was hurt on November 25th. I received a call at 11:30 a.m. from the nurse saying that he came to the nurse's office with a headache, and they asked him what the date was and who the president was, and he couldn't remember. And then when they asked him where he was, he thought he was at home when he was in school. And my son, he's a very kind, you know, he gets along with everyone. And then for another child to do this to him. And my biggest thing is, my son could have lost his life. Absolutely. I mean, it came so close. Like, if I would not have taken him to the hospital when I did, he would have lost his life. They medevaced him, it was that serious. And to try and keep a child that normally is very calm and collected and everything, to have a child laying down on the CAT scan table and him completely freaking out and having to have 5 people, including myself, hold him down to try and get a picture, and then have him medevac to Lehigh Valley, and thank God that they're good there and they know what they're doing. And he turned out to be fine, but still, he could still have other issues later on down the road. They do show that people that have head injuries when they're younger can end up getting Alzheimer's a lot earlier. And nothing, I mean, other than going to the police, the school police, which pretty much I feel try to talk me out of doing anything, because he said, well, we can't put an 11-year-old in jail. Well, obviously not. But again, there is juvenile detention, behavioral schools, and stuff like that. And then, from what I heard, all he got was a 3-day suspension. And for a while, he was still in my son's class. Though my son, he didn't go to school. I did not send him to school for the first 2 weeks. And when he finally did go to school, he was in the principal's office. But that child was still in that class. And then all they did was transfer him over to a different teacher, which still they do lunch and recess together.
He's also a repeat offender.
Exactly. I've had I put up on Facebook when I was in the hospital with my son, because obviously that's the only way anything gets around. I didn't expect to get it around or anything, but thankfully someone did. That we can stop this. I mean, I've been in the Height my whole life. I've been into the school and everything, and I don't remember, like the man said before, I don't remember this ever happening. We never had this problem in school. And it seems that things aren't being done. Like I said, I went and I talked to the school police, and he said pretty much again that you can't put an 11-year-old in jail, and pretty much anything else, we can only put a non-traffic citation to the child. You can't sue the parents or anything else. And I feel as though he tried to talk me out of pursuing anything.
I have a question for you.
One second, real quick. At that level, that is all our police officers can do, is these non-traffic. But no one said, go up to the other level or anything. No one helped you, nothing. That's a shame on this freaking district.
So when your son got hurt like that at school, and you were at home, I assume, and did they call you to tell you he got hurt, or did they call
That
you?
he had a headache, that he came to the nurse's station for a headache. They didn't say what happened.
So how did you find out what happened?
My son started telling me some of what happened.
That
That was in the bathroom.
while he was at school?
Yeah, while he was at the school.
And the nurse or the
They
other
went and
teacher
talked to the
never
kids.
asked him, or?
They went and talked to the kids, and the kid said that my son tripped. And you're not going to trip backwards and smash your head to the level of having a fracture in your skull and a brain bleed.
Right.
But nobody ever,
So
I would
did
think they should have
question-
called the ambulance, if anything.
Right,
To
did
take
they
them right there.
question the other children before you got there, or when you were there?
When
or
I was
days
there, when I
later,
was there,
or-
not anywhere around me.
And nobody knew nothing?
No.
And she called you and said, your son has
Got a headache,
come
yeah.
come up.
And then
Did he have a
said-
lump on his head?
And somebody tell the truth at 11 years old?
Unreal.
Where's the oversight?
Thank you.
Those are there.
I have to look. and
Under
see.
what legal authority do we have to accept a waiver of expulsion? And what authority do you have as administration? And I'm gonna ask him to answer that question because I don't think you know the answer.
Thank you.
The waiver of expulsions are brought before the board to vote on.
So,
Maybe we're
under
talking
what
about
Pennsylvania
local
school
withdrawal.
code is there a thing called waiver of expulsion?
No. I think Fred was referencing a willful withdrawal of
I
student.
understand that, but I'm asking, they mentioned waiver of expulsion. So under where is this waiver of expulsion in the Pennsylvania school code?
The agreements that the district makes with certain students is they waive the expulsion process and they get placed into alternative education programs like PHA. That's how we handle certain expulsion processes. Then there's no,
When you say we handle it, meaning the solicitor or the board?
the school district, by we.
And the district is made up of? The board.
I have,
Mr. Bradley, what he's telling you is that the waiver has to come before the thing. Mr. Cleaver and Mr. Stern, and I would assume council, can go with those parents at some given time.
Larry has no authority outside this boardroom at all.
Okay, well then maybe Mr.
No,
Cleaver or the.
We would have to make
the
the recommendation for expulsion.
Yeah.
And then at that point, the individual parents or guardian, whoever it may be, has the right for a due process hearing. That would be heard before the board, and then ultimately the board would have to justify why that student is being placed. Now,
Or they can be talked into a waiver of expulsion and then make it all go away.
No, the student's still expelled.
I don't, Mr. Bradley, I disagree with you with that. If the child is being removed from the school
The
district.
state's trying to fix this. It's a problem.
If the child is being removed from the classroom, who's being disruptive, and is a threat either to staff or to other children, I don't see a problem at all.
Within reason.
Sexual offender and all he's doing is going
Correct.
to another school.
Right.
Sexual offender in another school.
Because there's no due process, there's no, it's a waiver of expulsion.
And legally, when a student is expelled, they will ask if you're having expelled, and it's very simple, the parent could check no, and there's no legal
Yep, it's
obligation
just like
for us
passing the trash.
to go back and check.
Same
because
problem.
discipline records are, are private and privileged information. At the end of the year,
But again, that's why we have BHA.
That's why we have a board overseeing what's happening. Because there's people of character that can actually say, wait a second, this is wrong, you're passing the trash.
Mr. Bradley, typically those students who are, in that instance, who are sexual nature, typically there's something else going on at home, and there's usually other issues beyond.
Completely agree, they need help. Or they should get the help. There's a way to do that.
Absolutely.
And waving it away is not the answer. Covering it up is not the answer.
I'm not saying that.
Protocol is the answer. Follow policies is the
I
answer.
don't think that there's things, I think there's influences here that I think are going to be strongly heard, at this point. I don't think at this point, there can be a cover up, because I think it's well known in the public.
There's a right to know request by the Channel 13 News, right? That's not you. The Channel 13 News about a fight on a school bus, or on an incident on a school bus, I'll use the term. This district wants to take them to court so they can't see the videos, because this district is a law enforcement agency. They denied the claim.
can I address that and everything wrong with it? There was a right to know request. It was addressed because it was part of an ongoing criminal investigation. So we do not turn over evidence as part of an ongoing criminal investigation. The right to know officer has already gotten back and made a decision that yes, this appears to apply to a criminal investigation. They are referring it to the district attorney's office to review, to determine whether or not it should be released. So now it's with the right to know officer for the district attorney of Carbon County, It's no longer with the Office of Open Records. That is going through the process it is supposed to go through. Now,
Because it's a law enforcement.
And because
And it
someone
has to
asked,
be under-
and they wrote it down, holding them accountable to make a decision and follow through.
Mr. Bradley, it's a criminal investigation.
I agree.
Okay, so why would you want to jeopardize an investigation of that student being held accountable for their actions and maybe even possibly their parents being held accountable?
Completely agree.
Okay.
I'm on your side on that.
Why would you want them to turn that over? And
I didn't say I wanted to turn it over. The person legally asked for it in writing. The key to this thing is this.
No, the key to this thing that you're missing, Mr. Bradley, is that it is a criminal ongoing investigation. Ongoing, meaning that they have not concluded their investigation. Now, once that investigation is concluded, that's a different story.
When did it become a criminal investigation, sir?
What's that?
When did it become a criminal investigation?
He just said so.
Before, now, when did it happen? Before the person asked for the record? To get a record, to find out, or after?
That's why they didn't get released.
Well, I would assume at some point.
Hold them accountable and ask.
I would assume at some point in time that someone in the administration went to the school officer or one of them and said, here, investigate this, this is what your job is, go do it, doing an investigation, and then notify the district attorney's office and determining whether or not they're gonna file charges.
Completely respect that. That's a great assumption. We should verify that. We should know that. The board should know it. They have a confidentiality when it's in executive session. You can check these things. This district does not do that.
So your issue with this is not the fact that it's an ongoing investigation.
It's the
Your
fact that you
issue
got a bunch of
is
rubber
that-
stampers.
That you weren't notified as a school board member that a student was under investigation for an incident with the school district. Is that your issue?
Criminal activity occurring within a school should be notified to the board, just like you should be notified if there's a bomb scare. Just like if someone has a whole bunch of slip fall accidents, you want to say, why do we have a wet floor?
But let me ask you this, Mr. Bradley, let me ask you this, and I think maybe we'll all get some insight to this. To what extent of what information would you want as a school board member?
Lawful transparency.
No.
That's it, just lawful transparency. That's all you need.
I'm asking Mr. Bradley, what specific information out of that incident do you want? Do you want the student's name? Do you want the student's ID number?
Nope.
Do you want, what do you want? Do you simply want Mr. Cleaver to send out an email, hey, there was an incident that occurred on a bus today, and our school police officer is now investigating that. I'd like to let you know. Have a great day.
Most definitely, that would
Is
be all you
that
need.
all you're asking?
That's all you need. And when a bus loses its brakes and it rolls into the bus in front of it and they do a robocall, that nobody was harmed and it was all okay, that's reassuring the community about what's happening within your schools. You have a whole community here upset about what's happening in the schools.
But you're going on.
Nobody knows what it is.
I'm asking, is that what you're asking?
Lawful transparency, that's all it is, lawful transparency, that's it.
So
That's
you're
it.
not, so you're telling me, and I challenge Mr. Cleaver on this one. I think you know where I'm going with this, Mr. Cleaver.
There's nothing wrong with
So if Mr. Cleaver sends you an email, and simply says to the school board that there's an incident that has occurred.
Yep.
You'll be satisfied.
100%. And then the
you
next
will
one.
never hear another word of.
No, you will hear another word.
Of freedom of information.
No, you'll hear one more word. You'll hear one more word. At the end of that notification, within, let's say, a week or a month, you'll go back to them and say, what happened? Did we solve the problem? Did we resolve the issue? That's verification. That's verification.
It is on record. It is on record.
Right.
I think I answered a lot of questions.
I would like to forward you the emails, responses, when I try to attempt to do that and see the responses I get.
I'd love to see those emails, Mr. Cleaver.
Well, Mr. Cleaver, guess what? Tomorrow, sometime this week, I don't know what day I have, I'll put a Freedom of Information Act in for those emails.
If you want to ask me for them, I can give them to you.
Sir?
Folks, listen, my name is Larry Riddick, I'm from Tamaqua. I'm not a resident of the borough or of the Heights School District. I'm here to support Bernadette Rodriguez, and I know her son, Nathan. And I want to approach this, you know, I have to say something. I came here to support her, and 90% of what I've heard in the past 3 hours has been bashing back and forth. And I'm not here, look, I'm not here to preach. All I know is that I have no reason to think that everybody up here is not honorable and is here for the right reason, regardless of what was said. Having said that, from my anecdotal perspective, there is obviously a student that is a problem for some people. There's probably 3 or 4 students that have been the recipient of this student's wrath from a purely dollars and cents perspective. And I know that you were talking about waivers and all that stuff, but the fact is the school districts have to educate kids. Regardless of where they're going to be, you can kick them out of school, but you're still obligated financially to educate them. So regardless of where they are placed, PHA or whatever, if you get them out of the student population, that's one expense for the district that they won't have. However, if there are 3 or 4 students that decide to cyber school their kids, and some have IEPs, you know, in dollars and cents, it's $20,000 to $24,000 a month. Financially, it's kind of a no-brainer. I know that I'm simplifying this, and I realize there's a lot of complex issues regarding this. But if it is a dollars and cents issue, it would seem to me, again, from the outside, God knows I appreciate every one of you more than you know. And but I think that maybe you could look at that a little bit, and it would probably take the angst out of a lot of kids who are now, you know, whether there's a reason or not, if they're having trouble going to school, it's probably an issue. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
what would you do with in your school district? I know you're president of the Tohono School District. What would you do with this situation with Bernadette?
Well, first of all, we have our own crosses the bear relative to bullying back in the early 90s. Everybody's aware of a death that happened as a result of this. And so we take this very seriously. And in the PIMS report, as the newspaper article said, that we report everything we have. I mean, it made us look horrible. But look, you asked me a direct question. From a board perspective,
Right.
our board does not get involved with the minutia. Okay. We hold our superintendent, assistant superintendent accountable for making decisions at the lower level. And from that perspective, if something's not handled, if we have parents coming to us and we detect the problem, we look to the superintendent and say, you know, you're handling it, but we're not going to get into the weeds and fix it. God knows, I don't think any board member has the expertise to do that, really. I mean, that's why we hire administrators to do it. And you have much more patience than I do. So, but I don't have an answer to that. You know, it depends on everything. And we've had issues. We had a student who he's 24 years old and came to a school board meeting during the election cycle and said he was bullied in grade school, he was bullied in middle school, he was bullied in high school, he's in college, he's bullied again. It's all our fault. And it's the first I've heard of it. And it's not to suggest that these pains don't exist. What I'm suggesting is that perhaps that we can't be all things to all people, but everybody's talking about, you know, House Bill 1897 and doing away with cyber charters because they're evil and they take all this money and everything. But there's a reason they exist, and this might be the very reason, in some cases, why they do exist, because it's an alternative to their child's position in school. And it costs us, you guys, a ton of money to do it. So, I know you have your own cyber school here, that might be an answer, but it's still part of the organization, and it may not work for everybody, but if it's as easy as eliminating a student for good cause, then financially might be the best decision.
That kind of isolates a child that has a problem, that needs
Well,
socialization.
Our job is not to isolate the
Yes,
student.
that's what it
Our
is.
job is to take care of the student. It's our job as public schools to educate the student until they're 19, 18, 19 years old. And the venue that you decide to do that is it's what we're talking about here. You know, dude, if you had someone in high school that was a danger to their fellow students, you would remove them from the student population. When a child is much younger, they appear as though they're not as intimidating. But nevertheless, they could be. You know? I'm on the board of the IU, and we had a circumstance where a teacher overreacted with a bully student, 3rd grade. I mean, way over the top, it shouldn't have happened, but happened. And we're rectifying that. And, there's issues. Somebody said back there that it's the parents at home. Oh, duh. Yeah. I mean, how many parents do you see it? You went to the house and were told to get out because you're trying to protect someone. I mean, how stupid is that, But you can't go to the house. Mr. Cleaver can't knock on the door and say, hey, what are you doing here? You have to deal with the cars that you have. So I'm sorry, I have no business being here, but I do support Bernadette, and anything you can do to help her out would be appreciated by a lot of people. There's a lot of people that came here on her behalf, another board member here, and of course, so thank you so much.
Real quick, when you have an administrator that fails to follow the policy, how do you hold them accountable? What's the process?
Look, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I've heard you for the last 3 hours say the same thing to these guys.
You gotta do it, right?
And, well, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes, sir.
We conduct ourselves the way we conduct ourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe everybody's had their opportunity to speak.
I pulled the paper out.
Okay, all right. Well, you've been speaking. Have you Nathan or?
I'm Ryan.
You're Ryan. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan.
Good evening. As a alumni of the Hector School District in 2004, and as a veteran, today is, in my eyes, a sad day. I don't know where the school district is going, but it's certainly, I think the tension in this room and these board meetings has certainly taken away from the education that I know that I got from the school district. And I want my kids to get the same education that I was afforded. Opinion, I wish we could hire back teachers such as Jeff Elder and Chuck LaVallette. I think that they and Rick Bennett, who are some of the teachers who stuck out in my memory over the years while I was getting educated. They were good educators. So one of the things that may or may not disagree, but I'll give you a little back history of who I am. I am a veteran. I do run a nonprofit here in the state that I founded in 2015 called Pennsylvania Outdoor Veterans. I am the founder and executive director. And one of the things that I would encourage you, again, you don't have to do anything I say, but I would encourage you because transparency is everything. Transparency, even with grants, with everything, stands out. And if the taxpayers of this school district want to know those bills, and yes, it is a pain, which is why I feel sorry for you. Show it to them. Give it to them. If that's what they want to see, if that's what they want, then give it to them. There's nothing to be hidden here. I know that Patricia, I don't know how to say your last name, I apologize. You've come in and you've taken on a complete mess. And I know that the scrutiny has been put on you even harder because of your predecessor who you took over for. So while I understand that fiscal transparency is absolute and it's an absolute must, I have to do it too. I put out my agenda 5 days before. My board knows that if they want something on the agenda, they need to put it out 5 days before. If not, it's not getting on the agenda. If there's an addendum that needs to be made at the board meeting, then it's made. If not, well, we move on with business. I'm just shocked that some of you as board members don't look into those things. I know that I deal with the finances of our organization, and there have been times where I have seen bills, and again, it's not two eyes on a set of bills. There's things that have gotten past me, and there's things that I've also caught where going, that's not the case. That's not the cost of that bill. Errors happen. At the end of the day, there's a fiduciary responsibility that you have
not only to the employees, but the students, but also the taxpayer body. Another thing I came to is that my child has been one of bullying in a sense, and again, that has been taken up. I did not know the process until tonight. I'm glad I came. I learned that process. I learned something out of this tonight, how that process works, and certainly I'll let that go through that channel. I know that my child's mother has been in contact with the principal, and again, I'm not going to burden the board with that, or you, Mr. Cleaver, but certainly we'll deal with that as need be. And if we're not happy with that resolution, certainly I'll be back, or I'll come see you personally. As far as the hazing incident and the child with the brain bleed, certainly I would hope that this board would certainly take into consideration that those behaviors are not tolerated in the school district. We are, let me say that clear, let me say that loud, and let me say that proud. We are the best school district in this county, period. Whether we have a financial debt, whatever, the administration and teachers in this school district, we have proven time and time again, and believe me, I've been out to school districts, the student body here is some of the phenomenal students. So don't let that deter you. That's not tolerable behavior, and expulsion needs to happen. I think a message needs to be sent by this board that expulsion needs to occur and end the conversation. Unless there's something else to it. Mr. Cleaver, in reference to the bomb threat on Thursday, I'm disappointed at the decision that you made. I think you heard my voice on that. I don't need to repeat myself on that. As far as the advertising of the psychologist, as I was sitting back there, a lot of it is that a lot of psychologists are actually going to the VA because of liability. They're paying upwards of $180,000 to $220,000 a year. So everyone is literally running, doctors are running to the VA because they don't have to pay malpractice insurance. And that's where all the practitioners are going. So if that gives you a little insight, I don't think the school district can compete at that price. The final last thing I want to say is that I think one of the things that the school district should look at is a confidentiality policy. My board members have a confidentiality policy because we deal with veterans at times, and there's issues that are brought up before the board that I do discuss in detail, but it is a clear policy that I remind my board members that they are not to discuss any of that information outside of the board at all. My understanding, I think, God rest his soul, I think he passed away now, but one of the school board members from Panther Valley had violated that policy, confidentiality policy. They took him to court and he was removed from the board, if my memory serves me correct. I think you may recall what I was referring to. Mickey Youngst? Yeah, Mickey Youngst.
It was a lot more complicated than that.
Okay.
They didn't remove him from the board, they couldn't remove him from the board.
Oh, they didn't?
But they could get a restraining order to prevent him from distributing confidential information, but then they also had to give him the confidential information to begin with.
Okay.
So there's a lot in that opinion.
And this is a government, not private, so there is a big difference between your government and a private.
Oh, I absolutely understand that, but again, confidentiality policy signed by the board, I still think, gives you a little bit of teeth in the game, so to speak, with that, and certainly, if people are going to violate that, certainly they need to be held accountable at whatever means, particularly when you're dealing with the privacy of students. Again, between hearing about the recent student, committing suicide and the hazing incident and this child being tripped or whatever, I was not in here. I stepped out when the mother was up here speaking. It's just heartbreaking. And again, that behavior is not something that has ever been allowed in the school district. And certainly, I hope those students are held accountable to the highest degree. And that's all I have. That's all I have to say, unless someone has questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your service. Terry? Tammy? Okay. Wilmer?
Yes.
Ryan covered a lot of, pretty much everything there. Question to the board. In the event of a lawsuit filed against the Hygienic School District, where are the funds appropriated to satisfy the judgment against the school, should that be the case?
If a lawsuit is filed against the school district, we have insurance for those things. So at this point, the school district is, other than the student information.
Well, it was just a question because I was wondering if the taxpayers were going
As part of it, yes.
So
There is line items in there that says lawyer fees and different things.
So the taxpayers' expense could avoid it. Are your employees, not just teachers, but cafeteria people, maintenance people and that, are they all aware of the Whistleblowers Act? Are they all informed about that? Have they been educated?
I'm not 100%.
Because
I can't say that I formally have given any.
Well, something needs to be done there. You need to educate your staff, everyone involved with this school
We
district.
need the mandated reporter law.
The Whistleblowers Act. In other words, if you see something, say something. If you hear something, say something.
And they're
You shouldn't
protected
be
by,
afraid.
when they say it, they're protected.
And that's my point. I addressed you on this before, Mr.
Right, but there is a presentation that we give to the entire staff beginning of the school year for everybody as part of opening day. And it addresses all the case law, the reporting and whistleblower type, I believe Mr. Filer is
Well,
also.
perhaps you need a professional to do this, because I'm hearing complaints, once again, that several, whether it be teachers or staff members, maintenance workers, are complaining that they are afraid to come forward with information pertaining to bullying and the hazing, and the bomb threat as well. And I'm not saying bomb threat, it was just that they were gonna blow the school up. I don't know how they were gonna do it. But these people are afraid to come forward because according to what I'm being told, and we're probably gonna have to do something legal to figure out if these accusations are true or not. And if need be, people that can't afford lawyers or what have you, we'll find a way to fund them, whether it's GoFundMe or Facebook or whatever. But something needs to be done because I'm to the understanding that you are a lot at blame or a lot at fault for telling these people, don't say anything or your job could be in jeopardy. Now, I'm not saying that it's a positive fact, but we're gonna get to the bottom of it.
First of
Because
all,
a lot-
I do not have the authority to threaten anyone with their job. The
Well-
board is the one who hires and fires. I can make a recommendation.
Well, that's beside our point.
Right?
Remember when
That's what
Ryan
I'm
said how
saying.
great it was to hire the right teacher?
But what I'm
Just work
saying
doing
is I
blind.
can make a recommendation, but I can tell you that I have never turned anyone away when they have come and asked to see me.
All I can say is they are in fear of losing their jobs because of what they are being told by yours truly.
They should.
Okay?
And they all have representation, they're all.
Yeah, I know all
Be part
about
of
that.
it.
Yeah, and if they're not one of the cronies, snitches get stitches, or they lose their job, or you know what I mean, they're threatened. I'm just saying, they're afraid, Mr. Cleaver.
They should not be afraid.
Well, you're saying they shouldn't, but they are. You told me that last time, and it's still an issue. I'm not making it up, I'm not lying, I'm not there to hear it, but like I said, if need be, there'll be subpoenas issued or what have you. Because this is ridiculous. If somebody sees something that could prevent a student from being injured, or if they see something where a student is under a lot of pressure because he's being bullied, they need to say something. Not be, hey, keep it hush hush. And another thing, I was to the understanding that it wasn't reported to the proper authorities about blowing the school up. I was to the understanding that you said get rid of it, make it go away. I don't know, again, but we may have to
There's a lot of things out there that is.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that, there's half-truths and, but why, again, why wasn't the proper protocol followed? I mean, obviously, you can't sit here and tell me that you are a professional to determine whether or not that was a legitimate bomb. I don't care if you talk to the person or not. They could have been in cahoots with someone else to plant a bomb. It could have been planted somewhere else in the building. And you would have never known until it blew up. And now there's dead people. Can you imagine? Could you live with that the rest of your life if that was even a smidgen of a possibility?
Again, there's a lot of threats that there are smidges and.
You can't, yeah, but you gotta take them all serious.
We do.
You didn't.
then
You
we
didn't call in
investigated.
dogs, dogs can smell that stuff. That person, yeah, you talk to them, you think they're gonna tell you everything?
A lot of times students do come forward with a lot of information.
Well, I'm just sorry that you didn't take it more serious and that this could be for real, you know, because you're assuming or talking to them and taking their word for it. It could have been extremely costly. Thank God it wasn't, but maybe the next one will. You know, and these kids are repeated offenders. Somebody's sticking up for these kids, and I don't think it's just the parents. I think these kids are being protected through favoritism and nepotism. That was the case when I was a kid, not to this degree. We didn't have these incidents. But if your dad was somebody, you got a quarterback on the knee-high football team. If your dad wasn't somebody and you were a nobody, you ended up blocking for the other guy. It's all favoritism and nepotism. Way back, and it's continuing. These repeated offenders, you can't tell me that there shouldn't be court actions taken against them already to have them expelled. Not just one. It was mentioned that there's one bad guy in a bunch. There's a bunch of them. And this hazing thing, it's just unacceptable, totally unacceptable. From what I understand, they got 10-day suspensions. You gotta use them as an example. It sucks, but hey, that's just the way it is.
10-day suspension's not an example? Is that?
That's too lenient. No, absolutely not. If I had something to say about it doing it, they'd be in a juvie detention home, and that's where they receive their diploma. 4 years in that home.
If you were
Let them
doing
graduate
something
from
and
there.
that got done.
That's a sexual offense, that's a felony.
Again, the police are investigating, we can't press charges with that. There's hazing statutes that they have to follow. That is all turned over to the police. All the information we have no authority to do any type of charges.
Mr. Cleveland, there is one question that I do have. So, the start of this incident to the time for the expulsion hearing, the due process hearing, okay? To me, it would make sense unless there's a statute that says that you can't go over a certain period of time. Are they suspended? Can they be suspended until that period of time?
I'll let Mr. Filer answer, because there's a lot of legal.
I wish I could give you a bright line answer that if this, then this. But as it stands, every case has to be addressed on an individual basis. For a hypothetical instance, let's say you and I got into a fight, okay? And it was a really bad one, lots of injuries, everyone's hurt. If you would have an IEP and I don't, I can be suspended for more than 10 days. If you have an IEP, we can only suspend you in total for 10 days throughout the entire year. I can't give you a bright line test of when expulsions can be done, what can be done, and when, without knowing all of the facts of all of the cases, and without knowing all of the background of the kids. So it's a lot more complicated than there was clearly something wrong done, why is he not expelled? There was a lot of factors that go into play.
So,
it sounds ridiculous. I know you're.
My jaw is like in the floor right now going, wait a minute, if you have an IEP, you can only be held accountable for 10 days, return to school.
Throughout the entire year.
To your due process hearing, and then determined otherwise by the school board. And then you have a right to appeal, so that you can still be in the school for another year, year and a half. It does run all the way to the US, PA Supreme Court.
No, what I'm telling you is that the most I can kick you out if you have an IEP would be 10 days.
Even if they murder somebody.
If they murdered somebody, they're getting charged at the district attorney's office.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
which is separate from the school district.
A sexual offense is pretty bad. That's
Again, that case is being investigated. The district attorney's office is handling that. They were notified the day we were notified.
But
And the
kids
district
still went to
attorney,
school.
the district attorney
But
recommended to
I
us.
understand, mom works at the magistrate's office, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling
I don't
you. It's
know.
too much. I mean, these kids are being covered for, and you're gonna find out one day, and it's very extreme circumstance, or what I'm about to say. You could be raising a serial killer. This is the way his mind works.
Does this not raise to the level, after all these incidents and all these things that have gone on, does this not raise enough to the level of the school board members and maybe you, Mr. Cleaver, going to our state rep and state senator and saying, we have problems. We don't, there's too much of a safety net here that we're putting students in more harm than.
Can I address that? Because a lot of problems could be addressed if we go to our state senators. The IEP is a federal statute, so you need to go to your US senators and US representatives, because you want to change it. Now, there's so many interlining laws, and this one in particular is federal.
Wilmer, you had mentioned that notice of information and sharing information. Our board was first told of this the day that the administration says they first heard of it, which was December 4th. So if anyone has information that our district was told prior to December 4th that these things were happening or stuff was taking place, they should really file a complaint with the district and make sure they carbon copy the entire board if anything predated December 4th. I just heard November, some dates.
That's what I was hearing.
Yeah, no, so.
That's the problem, everybody's hearing things.
Correct.
It's-
File a written
Social
complaint.
media blew everything totally out of proportion, and
I don't know
it
if
is
that's
absolutely ridiculous.
When you're telling me it's not a proportion, it's not
Absolutely,
it is, it's not a proportion.
Absolutely.
I'm hearing that the
One
broomsticks.
of those kids was my son who is a victim, okay? So it is totally out of proportion, and it is absolutely ridiculous.
So broomsticks being used on a kid or hurting your genitals.
There's a sledge.
It's alleged, it's absolutely ridiculous. Exactly. They got the video.
Yeah, like I was hoping somebody would say that. That there's a video.
Nothing, they didn't,
I know they
stuff
did.
happened.
No matter if it was bad or not, it should have never happened to begin with. Those kids should have been supervised properly.
There you go.
And they were.
There's no right away, and something should have been done about it. The athletic department should have noticed it, it should have said something.
You can sit there and view all you want, it's all gonna come out eventually, I can guarantee it, yeah.
That's fine.
Let it come out.
Let it come out.
And our athletic committee should also recognize, how is this gap left in the system? How is it left?
And he's a repeated offender, at least one.
No, the gap of time between when the kids are supervised.
Well,
Mr. Moria, yes, sir. Did you want to say something? Oh, okay, I saw it, I thought you were.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to mention one thing. What we'll do is I'm scared something, I believe, earlier on in the year. And I very rarely get a phone call from anybody that's within the school, even though I have some friends. And I happened to be at the Shell station by the turnpike, and I get this phone call saying that there's a bomb threat in the school. All right, so I went, holy cow, serious? Serious. I said, okay. So I'm getting a sandwich, from Subway. I walk outside, and there's two Franklin policemen sitting in their car eating lunch. Knocked on the window. And I told them, I said, I just got a phone call from someone at the school, and they're telling me, here's the phone, if you want this, we got a bomb threat. And I'm expecting some concerns. So they look at me and they said, well, okay, was this called and that got called? I said, wait a minute. I said, I just got a phone call. I said, there was a bomb, one of the other schools in the country had something earlier on, just, within months or weeks. So I'm thinking, you get in your car and you go check it the hell out. These are the guys with the shields and with a gun. And I told them that. And they said, well, no, it's out of our district. And I looked at them too and I said, I know you're effing kidding me. And of course the one guy got upset. I said, I don't give a shit. I said, you know what? You're the guys with the shield and the gun. And somebody at the school's calling, and I'm telling you, I don't get phone calls like this. There's something going on. Why don't you go just check it out? He said, well, we can't check it out because it's out of our district, and you have to go see the state police up on 209. And I looked at them and I said, you are kidding me. I said, we both know we're all here. If you two really don't care, and you're being paid to defend everybody, and supposedly, right, take care of our children, I don't really give a shit. Because what am I going to do? All right? And I went home. So basically what you have, it's the entire system that's broke. It's not just here, they got their own problems. The state has a problem, our townships have a problem. I mean, when voting time comes, I'm out there all the time, and it's not that I'm against certain individuals, I'm against the way certain individuals think, all right? And it's up to the voters to replace everyone that they think is wrong. And of course, everybody in this town votes on family, friends, and neighbors. And it's not just here on the school board, it's anywhere else. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Adjourned at 10:41. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you coming and bringing some of these issues to